are very excited to be working with him and his team to help really bring to life some of the core insights and recommendations that TIP had. My goal today will be to share with you kind of a reader's digest of what it is that is the essence of what TIP recommended and how Bill and Gary have been processing this into their priorities for 2021 and a timeline. So we're actually going to see, what does this mean for May, June, July, August, leading up into October. And then we're going to talk about the rewiring of the subcommittees. Again, Bill and Gary's vision for what TIP really meant for rewiring for how the subcommittees, what the subcommittees will need to be, how that works with the executive board and such. So we're going to go through this slowly so you can really see, what did TIP say? How is this being processed by Bill and Gary? What are they therefore proposing that this is going to shift and change? But we want your feedback on that today, because of course, as you'll recall, one of the big things that TIP is really saying is we got to move out of this sort of compliance and like, yes, rubber stamp, and move into this real level of engagement and shared decision making. So we're going to try to do some kind of co-visioning today around some of the subcommittees, if I can get to it. I do want to start out with, because this is a really, really great opportunity to collect some baseline data on what's really changing here. I'm going to send into the chat box for everyone a quick survey. This, as Gary said, this is the very last time that meetings are going to be structured like this. We're not going to do these report outs in the same way anymore. He wants to, right, we want to move into kind of a more engaging report out structure. So we want to understand what your baseline experience was today. So if you could just open up the survey, you'll see a couple of quick questions. I'm going to be watching for your responses. You have 3 minutes. This also is a great opportunity to share sort of anonymous ideas, feedback about your experience so far, things that we can really help shift or change. So take 3 minutes and fill out that survey. Let me know if you have any trouble accessing it. I just heard from someone they haven't seen the survey. It's in the chat box. Let me share it one more time so you have it. That's the longer version. Perfect. Okay, seeing a few responses come through. Good. Take 1 more minute. Great. Keep going. 30 more seconds. All right, throw me a thumbs up if you're done, if you know how to do that. All right, see it? Okay, great. Perfect. Good job, guys. That was very helpful, and that data and insight you'll see how it relates to kind of some of the things that we are working on over the next several weeks and months. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Presentation. Okay, so just as a reminder, if it pulls up, hold on.
Come on, you can do it.
I know, right? It's
Murphy's alive and well, right?
There we go.
Hey.
Okay. There we go. So as I mentioned, this is the agenda for the conversation. I'm going to see where I can pick up time. I do. This is so important for everyone to provide feedback on. I'll be stopping in many of these slides, probably every 3 slides at the very least, to be getting your feedback. So just want to norm on using the chat box. You can use that privately to me. So if you go into the chat and find my name, Kat Lindroth from Social Contract, you can be sharing private messages to me if you don't feel comfortable sharing it with the whole group. But on several occasions, I'll be just asking you for candid feedback. This is crucial. There's no one else other than you who has better insight into some of the things that TIP is recommending needs to shift. So we'll need your deep insights, your feedback, your honest feedback. So without further ado, this, just to give you a sense, TIP really shared recommendations that would enhance your ability to live out your vision. And I think they really were emphasizing what it means for the Workforce Development Board to lead and to be responsive and to be adaptive and to really streamline resources in really important ways. So I think they were really, their insights were really about helping you arrive at the vision that you have for yourselves. So they weren't sort of shifting course, but they're saying, here's some things that you could do to, and operationalize a little differently so that you can arrive at these strategic goals and this vision that you already have. Just as a reminder, right, this is sort of the key slide that they provided. This is kind of the snapshot of like, look, if you want to do this and reach this vision more effectively, they're saying you're going to need some operational enhancements. The big thing for them was this two-tier high demand list and a strategic outcomes dashboard. They really emphasized something that I know many of you have been saying for decades, which is employer engagement enhancement and a better system of employer engagement. Let me close my door. Hold on. Okay. All right. So how do we ensure that we have a comprehensive system that engages industry sectors in a totally different way? So this was a huge emphasis for them, and you'll see this come up in the subcommittee structure later. And then system alignment and governance. How can we govern better? How can we make sure that we are leading and being responsive and governing as a workforce development board to reach our goals? So they dug into that one quite a bit. Key point, this was again a key slide that came through. We've got to shift from compliance towards strategic planning, allocation, and evaluation. So they really want to move to engagement and the ability for the executive committee and the workforce development board holistically to be able to be more empowered to make highly informed decisions. And so this was really a takeaway. And how do we really live our strategic plan, right, and not have it away on a shelf somewhere? So what they gave us some more concrete advice, right? And they're like, okay, if you're going to do this, what should you focus on? So they were really reinforcing board structure and governance will support a meaningful role in strategic planning. So more inclusive and collaborative experience around strategic planning, progress monitoring, resource allocation, and decision-making. The board's level of training, engagement, and understanding of the workforce development system and its related programs are going to need to increase. Board membership will need to reflect the diversity and the key sectors of the state. Board members are going to have clear roles and expectations in relation to their terms of service. And the board is going to, as they have been, prioritizing effective succession. So these were some of the key things that that TIP has said. And I just want to pause here for a second as promised and just ask you to gut check, and you can send this to me privately. From this slide specifically, if there was one or more that you felt was the highest level of priority to you, I'm curious to know which of these on this list strike you as most important. So just take 30 seconds and privately chat me, which of these is most important for us to tackle.
Kat,
Yes.
I think, and I've said this plenty of times before, unfortunately, I think that this is all well and good that Tip came out with this, but I don't think this applies specifically to the state of Delaware. It could apply to any other state. I think what we really need to do is, it keeps talking about the board. Well, the board membership does not reflect a lot of sectors in this state, because we really don't have enough. We do not have enough non-state employee / contractors involved in our board, really to reflect, what's out there as far as how the state goes. I mean, I've been in meetings for years, and the vast majority of the people that come to the meetings are all state employees or divisions within the state. I think they've got to come and find a way that we've got to get more, and I hate being an outsider, but more outsiders involved to come in and give, their experience, their stories, their contacts, in order to get this thing going. And I think that's very important, because we haven't had that in a number of years.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great point. And I just chatted that in there too, because it's almost like it's other. So that's very helpful. I'm seeing a lot of these chats come through. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds. Take your time. Which of these is most important to you?
So Kat, can I just follow up a little bit on what John said? So I was the executive director for the Workforce Investment Board when we transitioned from JTP, what was that old thing? I don't remember it now. The Job Training Partnership Act, when Kennedy led the thing for the Workforce Investment Board. And that was a major shift, where private industry was supposed to be providing oversight and strategic direction, and state employees struggled with that, because they had, under Job Training Partnership Act, controlled the funding, and the board, the old JTP board, was kind of an advisory board. And the board could say, we don't want you to train anybody to make wagon wheels, and the Department of Labor could still train people to, like, there was no authority. And that transition to the Workforce Investment Board was supposedly giving the private sector more authority and responsibility to drive it. And so in those early years, when we first transitioned into the WIB, the recommendation under that federal statute was get rid of all your old board members and start with fresh ones, because it will be hard for people to think differently. And I think slowly we've evolved back to the Job Training Partnership Act type of a board.
Wow.
To John's point, I kind of, again, I'm a state employee, but almost as an outsider watching what happened as we kind of went to the pendulum maybe went too far in one way, but now we've kind of almost fallen all the way back.
I couldn't disagree more, Madam Board Member. That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
I think that's a really interesting point. I just summarized it here, where you're basically saying that the membership it really matters. So same thing like John saying, more outside perspective, more private sector perspective. And that private sector perspective was really the essence of what the Workforce Investment Board was meant to do. So that private sector membership is really crucial. I hear you correctly? Great. Wonderful. Okay. So this is, again, just a snapshot. As you know, there were many tip slides. I tried to consolidate it into a few. And so this, I think, is really the essence of what they're saying about board functioning. They're also saying that, and this is really from Bill and Gary, there's going to be some really important decisions that you specifically, this executive team, is going to have to make this year. And I'm just going to show you kind of a high level of some of these decisions that I know is really up for Bill and Gary. So we, your executive team is going to have to really take a look at the ISY OSY breakdown, the two-tiered system, your org structure, the related budget in relation to the org structure. So budget allocation and really looking at ROI analysis and saying, are we looking at our budget a little differently? We're going to have to look at our board matrix and our membership. We're going to have to look at our nomination process, our onboarding process, our training. Subcommittees, what are they? Who are on them? To your point, what expectations do we have for them? And taking a look at our state planning process, and specifically the executive team really taking a key role in the visioning and enabling true collaboration around that visioning and state planning process. So I want to pause here because this is a lot, to take in, but thinking, wow, we're going to be making these decisions this year. And I'm being told that we really need to be empowered to make effective decisions on, through a shift in engagement, a shift in subcommittee structure. I want to just give you a chance to chat to me or to full group. What do you suspect you need as an executive team member in order to make these decisions? And for those of you who aren't executive team members who are here, similar question to you. What is it that you want or need? What is it that you want around being involved in some of this decision making? So I just want to pause here, knowing these big decisions are going to happen. What do you need in order to make these decisions effectively? What do you need to feel included in the process? Great, Maureen, first place, getting in there, more time to interact with data presented at this meeting. What else? Oh, you're not, I just want to be clear, you're not making these decisions today. These are the decisions that you will be empowered to make throughout the year. And what are the kinds of information or data or experiences or facilitated opportunities that you would need to feel like you could make really strong decisions as a board? Just send me some thoughts because we're going to be talking about it. Not now, but with Bill. This is great. Take 20 more seconds. Anything you can think of matters. So even if you sent something brilliant, send something additionally brilliant. Every piece helps. And just want to acknowledge, I'm seeing a lot of the same names pop up, and there's about a third of you who are actively sending messages. So I really would encourage the whole group that's here today, even if you're not fully on the executive team, to feel like I would love your opinion and your insights. So please feel free to respond, and would love to see full engagement today. All right, we are going to move on. All right, so again, as you'll recall, there's a major emphasis on shifting and enabling employer engagement, a system of employer engagement, and building up true employer consortiums that are really identifying demand and addressing training needs more collectively, collaboratively. So hold on, I'm just seeing something pop up. Oh, got it. Thank you. So that was funny. So yeah, so the employer engagement system was really important. I really liked this slide, which just kind of captures what they're saying, is really shifting to having kind of an organized approach to engaging with industries, and having a neutral convener that is able to work with employers to proactively identify shared needs and to essentially build a supply chain of talent providers that are coordinated in support of the sector priorities. So they're definitely advocating for this shift that I know many of you have wanted for some time. So from that, in our conversations with Bill and Gary, there's a couple of key priorities that that are on the top of their minds, right? As we move into implementation, it's okay. What is, the board's strategic role and how will they be empowered to make decisions? Big thing. And why I just asked you for that feedback. Board training and engagement. So how are we really empowering the board to engage? How are we really improving understanding and training? Balanced and intentional membership. This came up already as a huge priority shared amongst many of you. Effective subcommittees. And I know that what Bill and Gary really want to arrive at is this true engaged subcommittees that not just coming in and reporting out, not saying that's the current state, but the idea of really sinking their teeth into work and working collaboratively with staff and the board. Redefining mission essential task list. So Bill has this extraordinary document that lays out who's responsible to literally everyone, and kind of having to rework that now through the TIP lens. Staffing and org structure, there were some very, very clear recommendations about organizational structure, so we've got to grapple with that. The system of employer engagement that we just talked about, so really, really lifting off that system. And of course, all of that happening amongst and amidst succession planning of two really extraordinary leaders who have carried this weight for quite some time. So these are the top priorities right now. I'm just going to pause. Anything missing? Do these feel right to you? Just gut check. Take these in. Do these feel right? Anything off to you? Sorry. Okay, that's my bad. There we go. We're back. Thank you so much for all these chats. This is really great. It's a great question. Patty asked about the neutral convener, but I'm going to hold on that. I think that's a good question to have for the subcommittee groups in the future. All right. And same question. What is most important to you? Doesn't sound like there's anything missing. I'm not seeing anyone share that there's anything missing here, but give me a sense. What's most important? 30 seconds. Joyce, one that time. Great. Great. This is great. Encouraging everyone to participate. Awesome. Thank you. 5 more seconds. All right. So if this is what's on the to-do list, how are we going to make it happen? So this is coming out of the brilliant mind of Sir Bill Potter. He has impressed all of us with his like incredible use of Miro and building of these flowcharts. I'm going to go into this in greater detail because I'm going to imagine that this is a little hard for you to read, but I did just kind of want to share the source of what I'm about to share. Came from discussions based off of this flowchart and this wireframe here. And you'll see a couple of key elements around the July board meeting. Lots happening here. We're, shifting gears. It'll be kind of the committees are going to meet for the first time. So you'll see there's a lot of shifting and transitioning happening between these core meetings, July, September, October. And yeah, let me go into that in greater detail now. So in May, that's right now, we are aligning on a high level plan for how the board, WIOA subcommittees and staff are going to integrate the tip recommendations, like happening right now. And we are going to also align as a high level board on subcommittees and the overall timeline, which is literally what we're doing right now. And then the board is going to weigh in on strategic vision and objectives of the subcommittees. And I'm truly hoping that I get to that, but I'm just sensing because of the time shortage, what I might need to do is just follow up with a survey and get that from you as a survey, because I suspect we are going to run out of time. Okay, so key actions starting in May, populate the subcommittees. And then what we'll do is train the subcommittee chairs to prepare for a launch. Something happened there with my bullet point that should say refine the draft board matrix and rubric. So my understanding is Tip did take a stab at this and we can work with this. We have to start in May because starting in August, we want to begin the work to actually repopulate and begin to invite more board members, that align with the needs shown in the matrix or the rubric. I'm going to pause here. Does anything here feel unclear, concerning, confusing? Okay. All right. So once we've populated the subcommittees, which, Bill and I have talked about enabling kind of a nomination process so that folks, can nominate others to be on these different subcommittees. And he's also kind of taking a look at from his sort of all-knowing eye, like, what he thinks and mixing that with the nominations. But populating the subcommittees, identifying the chairs, and getting this rubric off the ground is what we will be helping with primarily through May. As we prepare, we're going to lead up to this July meeting, right? In the July meeting, we together are going to work on values and norms. And I know sometimes people think that's fluffy, but it's really, really not, because especially if we're going to be building onboarding and training materials for new board members, we all have to be super aligned on what we want the values of how we operate, of how we work, of what we're about, and the norms of how we operate and how we work, to be super clear so that you have a voice in that as you begin to bring more of these members into your fold. So in July, we'll focus on values, norms, and some of the onboarding and training objectives for new members. We will approve the October board retreat agenda. And so we'll take a look at that together. The subcommittees are going to meet for the first time. So this is going to be great. Members from my team and Bill's team, so staff, are going to be supporting the facilitation of these subcommittees. And they're going to be doing the groundbreaking work of alignment on a high-level vision and objectives. And then we will together approve, well, you will approve the board matrix and rubric that we will have worked with Bill and his team on to update between May and July. We are then going to, after the July meeting, really activate those new subcommittees. So it's super important that the subcommittees have a deep and powerful and like really collaborative relationship with the WIOA leadership team. and member and partners. So Hope, is going to be a major person that we will be checking in with frequently to make sure that WIOA is absolutely integrated nicely into the subcommittee facilitation and structure. And so, yeah, we'll be working together to help build the goals, the charters, the metrics, aligned with the board vision for each of the subcommittees. We are, and Bill and I talked about this with Gary earlier. This is a recommendation from TIP that it sounds like we are going to put into motion, which is launching the bi-monthly meeting. So every other month meeting, and then the subcommittees should meet on the off months up until the October meeting. And so we decided that the subcommittees should be meeting monthly at the very least because of how much work needs to get done between now and October, and just forming and storming. And then after October, the subcommittees can decide if they just like to continue to meet in the bi-monthly or if they feel it's important for them to continue the monthly touch point. We will then activate the new standard of reporting. And that's, when you can't actually read the slide because the taskbar is over it. That's funny. I actually can't read what the rest of that says. Sorry. Hold on. Oh, come back. Okay. Yeah, activate a new standard for reporting. And does someone else just want to read what the rest of that line says out loud?
Meeting structure / process.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it just says you are screen sharing right over that line. All together now. So I'm going to pause again. Does this feel right? Give me the thumbs up. Anything feel off? Do you have questions about something? Ideas like, hey, have you thought of this? Just want to give you a minute to really provide your input and feedback on what we're saying has to happen in June and July. And we've got 12 minutes. We can do this, guys. Stay with me. We really want your input on this. How do you feel about the monthly touch point? Let me just see like a share of, you feel like this, you feel like this, you feel like this. Monthly subcommittees. This is like lukewarm. I'm okay with it. I'll do it. Not happy about it. This is like, yes, we need this. And this is like, I don't think this is a good idea. You could just show me. All right. Oh, you're chatting it to me. Time is the issue. Yep. Yep. All right. So that's a good question from Maureen, sort of teeing us up into what we're getting to, which is what does the subcommittees do? And yes, subcommittee, we need to make sure that that time is super effective, and that they will actually be facilitated and supported by our team. I was told there's a question. Ron, can you just say it out loud if you want me to address it? I don't see it.
Yeah, I thought Hope had a good question. Hope, feel free to indulge us, but I thought your question was worth kind of wrestling with a little bit. Basically, it's, are we going to take the goals that TIP identified and massage them? They spend a lot of time with focus groups and interviews. We want to make sure we don't lose that. Yeah.
I mean, everything that, TIP, I think, is being utilized as the foundation for all of what I'm sharing right now. And you'll see some of that in the way that Bill and Gary developed the future subcommittee, some of the notes related to what the subcommittees will do. So let me keep moving. So what does this mean? This means this means there's the emergence of the September meeting where the executive board is going to approve charters of the subcommittees following the retreat. So because they're meeting bi-monthly now, there will be a September meeting. And that will be important for establishing the subcommittees. And Hope, to your point, TIP was the ones that suggested the bi-monthly shift. Support the repopulation of the board in key sectors. So basically, starting in August, once we've done the board matrix, we'll be able to identify where there's gaps, both in diversity and in, the key sector inclusion. And we'll be able to support, collectively as a board, the repopulation of the board in those key sectors. And we'll be able to start actually engaging them in the new onboarding and training process. And I do believe Bill said that he would love everyone to be able to engage in that training. So my hope is that we'll be able to see a preview of that or engage you in it a bit in the September meeting itself. So yep, board repopulation is underway by August, and we've developed the board training by then as well.
I'm just a little concerned when we talk about how much we're going to train them and how much we're going to guide them and lead them. The whole premise of getting more private sector board membership was they run businesses every day. They hire people. They know what their skill sets are, that we were going to ask them to teach us as government bureaucrats how to best meet their needs. And so I just really worry that there's going to be this massive recruitment, and you're going to get high-level executives who say, yes, I'll come. And after 2 or 3 meetings of just listening to talking heads, they're going to time out. Great
point. And that, I think, captures the essence of the shift that needs to happen. Onboarding and training for joining a board is a pretty standard process for when people are joining high-functioning boards. If you're joining a high-functioning board, you're getting history. You're getting an understanding of the system that you're weighing in on. You can't have people effectively help make decisions on something they have no information or insight around yet, or like knowledge of systems. So I'm going to go ahead. What I was extracting from the tip piece was that they think that the training is important because if you're going to have high level executives from the private sector joining, there's some things they're going to need to learn in order to feel like they're empowered to make effective decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Kat, I just think you have to estimate what, if somebody's being paid $100,000 a year, what is an hour of their time worth? And how many hours are you going to expect them to sit through training to be able to participate in your board that is a volunteer effort on their part?
Right. And we'll look at what's standard. When we're building that, we'll look at what's standard for other, high level boards across the nation, and we'll identify what it looks like. I hear your point. Your concern is that, man, we want to get these super important people here, and we want to make sure that their experience is really great and really streamlined and really honors their time. I hear you.
No, I guess, yeah. if I could, and that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And so the TIPS folks did surveys of great in-depth research and high-functioning boards, and we want to become one. And there's probably some level setting that has to go on with that. They think that improved training is a key factor. In fact, I would tell you that I have offered training to seminar attendance to board members, and they've gone. So I think the answer is somewhere in the middle.
Exactly, and we will benchmark off of it, but it's all in service to operating with excellence as a board and board training. I think you're maybe thinking of training a little bit differently than maybe think about it as onboarding, but having an understanding of the workforce development system, having an understanding of the language they're walking into, the system that they're contributing to as a decision maker. Any high-level executive is going to want to understand the context in which they're making decisions.
But sometimes you have these high-level executives or people from the state that send their representative to the meeting or sends a different representative every time, and then there's no flow there at all. Not really accomplishing anything but filling a seat.
And I think that's what TIP is getting at too, having very clear expectations for what it means to sit on this board. So that, I think, really speaks to expectations. So everything you're bringing up is very, like, from what I can tell from the TIP piece, like they're hitting on your point exactly, John. And having it mean something, to have meaningful discussions, that we really need them and them alone to participate, not something that you can sort of hand off to someone else, and setting that expectation.
And Patty, to your point, there's things that we could look at over the next few months about how to do that effectively, packaging wise, right? It may not just be a straight training. There may be materials that we could send in advance that really cut that time, to a more manageable level. So there's all sorts of ways we can attack it.
Yeah. I mean, once we do the research and look at this, it could be a 90-minute training, could be 3 hours. We really don't know, but we have to do the research and construct and understand what's optimal and what's needed. But we will absolutely do it through the lens of the who that we're trying to attract and onboard here.
Yeah, I think that will all be helpful. To go back to what John originally brought up, when the workforce board staff did not report to a state agency, they reported directly to the chairman and the executive committee. It was very much driven by the private sector. Mm-hmm. And when the decision was made to move the workforce board staff into the Department of Labor, reporting directly up through a government entity, it became more of a government program versus a private sector driven program.
That's very helpful. Very clear historical element there. Okay, so almost there. October 2021 retreat, then the subcommittees are going to be revealing their charters, their metrics, their goals. There will be sort of a foundational conversation in motion for the state plan, introducing and engaging the group around vision, values, and norms. And again, engagement with WIOA priorities, as that is a key piece here around WIOA and the subcommittees. Priority actions after the fact, so October beyond, is activating the strategic planning process to launch those industry councils, so really building that system level employer engagement approach, and to begin to engage the board in the state planning process. So that is the timeline. That is what you can expect from us. As we've mentioned, social contract is going to be supporting with the project management around this, keeping all of this moving. We're going to be supporting with facilitation of the subcommittees to make sure that those meetings feel effective, they feel engaging, that they're well designed. We are going to support with the development, the design of the October retreat, the facilitation. So playing a number of roles to really just help Bill and Gary and the team really bring all of this to life. We will follow up with this slide deck so that you can review it if you have questions. But what we really wanted to impart was how did Bill and Gary really come to understand what needs to be done now that we've heard all of the tip recommendations. The slides this may be the part, Bill, where you're saying you want to kind of record and make available later, because what we're about to go into is how you're thinking about the relationship. Sorry, I keep doing left instead of right. The relationship between the board, the WIOA partners, and staff, and how this has come into your thinking about the operational wireframe. So maybe this is a good time to pause.
Okay, so I guess that Kat and I we'll keep driving on and develop a video for you guys to look at your leisure, because we're at exactly 2 hours now. So, Mr. Chairman, your thoughts?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, I tried to remain as silent as I could, because I know Kat and I have been talking so much. I didn't want to influence a lot of the good input that you all gave, and so thank you. I appreciate that. And Kat, I thought you did a great job on answering all the questions, pretty close to where I would have come down in terms of everything's a balance in life. And so I think whether it's the training we need to do or whatnot, it is a balance, and what the frequency is, we'll work through that, and we'll get to what the right frequency is for the meetings. I do think we need to meet more often than not, because I think the new committees are supposed to be more working committees than they were in the past. I think we'll always deal with good board members, bad board members, people that attend, people that send others, so we'll always have to deal with that. But the intent is to directionally be pushing towards a more engaged and involved board. And as a business owner myself, if I'm coming on a board where I know the output is helping me recruit, then I have something I'm getting from that and I'm willing to put in for it. But we really need to make sure that the board members we engage see themselves in the future output of the Workforce Development Board, and therefore are in high potential sectors. And we need to constantly be reinforcing where the value is and making sure they're seeing that and getting that to offset what they're willing to put into it. So I think we'll get there. You know, this slide here that's up on that Bill will, you know, send more information out on is a first cut at what the recommendations from TIP are around the subcommittees in the future. And I think the one that was somewhat different than the recommendations, but we felt important, was an employer engagement one, where I do think we're going to try to capitalize on a lot of what we learned on Forward Delaware and the group that we got together for Forward Delaware around these 3,000 individuals we trained in the first quarter or our training. So we learned a lot there. We don't want to lose that. And so I appreciate everybody kind of sitting through this, and it's an evolution. We really are continuing to push in this direction. There's no specific actions that we need you to take today other than understand where we're heading and help us continually try to refine that direction so that we're heading in the right direction on all of these issues. In my mind, these committees will own pieces of all these recommendations, and these committees will move it forward. We're trying to set up a structure that self-perpetuates through the process, and therefore people in each of these committees who will have the tasks coming out of the report that are closest to their committee, they will make these decisions. And so it'll evolve, it'll change, it'll morph to some extent, but at least directionally, these are the areas coming out of TIP that we're going to be focusing on. And we're going to work, in my mind, the two biggest things we got to do is engage new leadership on each of these committees, because they're almost all different than what we have currently. This is an opportunity for people that have been committee leads forever to hand the gauntlet over, but it also is an opportunity, if someone has an interest, please let Bill or I know for one of these committees, because we are going to be going through a process to try to identify leads on these committees. We tried to put down a list of what it is they're going to be responsible for, but in essence, they will be the leadership that drives this organization forward, all these committee leads. So they're pretty important roles. Kat's team will help onboard them and link them up to all the findings in the TIP strategies reports so that they have enough direction to push themselves forward, and they will have enough support between staff and Kat's folks to make sure they can push their committees forward. I'm heading towards the direction everybody's on a committee. We used to always beg for committee members. We're just putting every board member on a committee going forward. So it's not an optional thing anymore. When you're on the board, you're on a committee. And so we're going to try as best we can, not only to pick good leaders for the committees, but we're also going to try to align people where we think they best fit. But we'll obviously have flexibility as we go forward. And if people feel they're just in the wrong spot, we'll try to move them around. But at the end of the day, if you're on the board, you will be on a committee. And it's just a matter of which one best fits, your role being on the board. So again, I appreciate everybody kind of hanging on for the journey here and giving us a lot of good input. We're going to always be trying to correct ourselves with input from the board, but we also are going to try to keep faithful to the findings, because we put a lot of work into this report. So we don't want to deviate too much, but we don't want to be so inflexible that we're not, we're tone deaf to obviously good comments about how we should adapt to the recommendations. So with that, I apologize. I spilled over a little bit. Bill, I know, Bill, you tried your best to end this on time. I felt I wanted to do a little bit of a recap there. Any other, before we close out the board meeting today, any other final comments anybody wants to make before we wrap up?
I think just let's make a goal for all of us, in the spirit of engagement and collective decision making. Let's make a goal to all fill out the survey that's going to come through. So what Gary just said perfectly, right, is this is the thought of what the subcommittees will look like. We want and what Bill has said over and over again is he wants your voice in it. So the survey will include an opportunity for you to kind of absorb this, and share your insight on what these subcommittees should focus on, your ideas. It will also give you an opportunity to share which ones maybe you want to be involved in, which one you want to be involved in, and any nominations that you have to be on the subcommittee or to chair it. So keep an eye out for the survey coming up within the next 24 hours. I'll be sharing that with Bill, and would just love to strive for 100% engagement.
Okay, thanks, Kat. All right, and with that, once again, thank you all for joining us today. Apologize for running a few minutes over, and we'll call that end of call today and adjourn the board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Lindoff, what do you want to do here?
I actually think that this is more optimal to share as the follow-up. I think, I mean, it's really whatever you want to do. I mean, we could record it. It's good information to be like, this is how you're thinking about the wireframe, and these are the subcommittee.
Action.
Great. So this video is going to walk through the most up-to-date thinking of Bill and team related to how to operationalize some of the high-level thinking in the TIP recommendations. So what we've already gone through in today's meeting is we talked about how TIP really made some recommendations around board functioning and some board structure, moving from compliance to true decision-making and engagement. And this chart, I feel, really embodies where the board roles can go to really live out that vision. So this is something that Bill created in response to the TIP recommendations. And what he's really saying here is, let's look at segmenting the roles and responsibilities. And Bill, feel free to chime in after, if I'm in any way leaving anything out. But the board really should be that high level strategy, that force of strategy. They're crafting the vision, the mission, the success statement. They're really, that visionary strategy element. And so they're making decisions about strategy. WIOA partners, and this is what I really love about so much about what Bill has been saying, which is the WIOA partners need to be baked in right into the mix around how board operations, what we call the wireframe, works. So they would need to help develop plans to achieve strategic missions, help apply resources, help provide intelligence to strategic level, help execute combined efforts to achieve missions, and request resources. So WIOA and the subcommittees will be like integrated and working closely on kind of operational strategic planning and really providing, you see those arrows, providing feedback upwards and really informing the tactics. And Bill's also shared, like, this is what the staff does. The staff is really going to help usher in the day-to-day work that really drives towards mission accomplishment. And the staff is going to help also see that arrow going up. They're going to help inform, there needs to be a shift here in our strategic thinking or in our resource allocation. So they're providing that human intelligence on the ground that also goes back up and informs operations and strategy. So, this in many ways kind of, oh my gosh, is a framework for what we sort of translated into, quote, the operational wireframe. So what everyone's kind of, where the information flows and how decisions get made. So one, the board sets the vision and the high level strategic objectives. And subcommittees work with WIOA leadership team to develop plans and monitor progress and take action. And then staff supports the planning process and provides feedback on plans. The board then approves and authorizes those strategic plans and those key decisions, and they provide high level accountability. They keep all the trains kind of moving through holding that space for accountability. WIOA partners then take action based on what's been approved, and staff and the subcommittee leaders monitor that progress and support with problem solving as needed. Subcommittees keep the board up to date with progress. And you're kind of hearing rumblings of a big shift in what we see for future executive meetings, which will really allow the subcommittees to be engaged in those meetings and the subcommittees to share out really effectively with the executive committee about progress. So this is the operational wireframe. Moving on, subcommittees, as you can see, are an extremely important element that Gary and Bill have spent quite some time thinking through. And these are the subcommittees that they have identified are the most responsive to and equipped to execute on much of what TIP is saying. So obviously an executive committee that manages the reorganization deliverables, that approves the committee structures, that is responsible for board governance tasks, the use of blue collar funds, so decision-making executive team. There's a strategic planning subcommittee. So they're going to work really closely with board members and community members and service providers to really develop that 3-year plan, including timelines and quantifiable outcomes. They're going to be helping to communicate plans with constituencies and closely tracking and reporting on the implementation of plans. And they'll, of course, advocate for resources as needed. Important to note, right? They don't have to do this on their own. And in fact, this year, one of the things that Social Contract is supporting with is in the facilitation of some of this process. So staff, Bill's team, Bill's staff and Social Contract will work within each of these subcommittees to really help with each of these deliverables. So don't worry, you're not all on your own. You'll see youth and adult dislocated workers. In some of the deliverables there. Absorbing pieces of the proposal review, certification, performance measures, and finance. So you'll see how they're rewiring some of what was in other places, and now they're kind of finding their way into these new subcommittees. They lead strategic thinking on investments for all related programs, including operating principles and the directions for the budget and RFP development. They closely monitor program ROI and data to make informed decisions, and they engage in dialogue with service providers and make recommendations for improvements and advocate where needed. You'll see for their respective constituencies, youth and adult dislocated workers have similar bullet points underneath them. And then, as Gary mentioned earlier, employer engagement is a really important subcommittee to help really oversee the relationship with industry councils, the emergence of the system level employer engagement shift to having industry councils, maintaining ongoing communications with key industry sectors, developing communications and marketing plans, tracking and improving on ongoing new placements and retention. And as Bill said earlier, really seeing how we can implement a centralized case management, long-term support for placements. So this employer engagement committee is going to be a huge support and game changer in terms of how we relate to employers. So on the lower right-hand corner in blue, you'll see some key thoughts here from Gary and Bill. Board meetings will include time for committee breakouts. This is going to be the big shift. Committees are expected to meet outside of regularly scheduled board meetings. And as we talked a little bit about that earlier today, between now and October, we'd like to engage those subcommittees to help in preparation for October, really form norm storm and build some real solid foundation, and then revisit that in October. Maybe we can go back to bi-monthly, but we'll make that decision with more knowledge. Full board meetings, right, will be every other month. So that's why we're saying July and then the September meeting. Staff and consultant support will be assigned to each subcommittee. So again, you are not alone. We will be helping to facilitate work getting done, project management getting done between meetings. And that is what our team is here to do alongside of Bill's incredible team. So what we will do is follow up with this deck so you can look through some of the finer details. You can see here listed out the details that Bill and Gary have put together, and they're really looking for your feedback. So the survey that's corresponding with this video that you're seeing right now is going to ask you for your feedback on what it is you think these subcommittees really should be doing. So we'll provide this information and ask for your input. We will also ask for your input on sorry, I'm just seeing the chat. On nominations, which ones you want to be a part of, which ones you want to nominate people to be a part of. So we really want everyone's eyes on optimal decision-making for who really populates these subcommittees. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Again, you're not alone. Social Contract is here to support, and we're very, very honored and excited to partner through this really important transition. The Workforce Development Board is an incredible, team and group of real leaders in the state who have been doing incredible work, and we just feel honored to be able to come alongside and support with this shift. And again, honoring the great leadership that it takes to really hold recommendations like Tip offered and really take it by the horns and really shift gears together. So really excited to partner and help with the launch of these subcommittees and the support of developing clear roles and the new onboarding process that we talked about, really helping with board repopulation, the board matrix, and in general just being a support for effective facilitation in these group environments. Yeah, as you'll see, a huge thing that Social Contract is definitely going to keep as a top priority from that Bill and Gary have really emphasized is the importance of integrating WEO leadership team and partner involvement every step of the way throughout these subcommittees and in decision-making processes. Just as a reminder, what's next? We're going to look at improving the subcommittee structure. We're going to be really reviewing your data from the survey to identify subcommittee leaders. Social Contract is going to help train those subcommittee leaders, and then we're going to meet in those initial subcommittees together in July within the new meeting structure. That is as of yet the hope, and our ideal is to meet in those subcommittees for the first time. I'm going to pause there. Bill, anything I missed? Okay. For those of you who are still here, does anyone have any further questions for me at this time? Okay. Well, I hope this was informative and giving you a little bit of a primer on what these subcommittees, what the current state of thinking are in the subcommittees. Again, we're really excited for your feedback, your insight, to incorporate that feedback and get to a really solid July meeting. Thanks so much.